Okay guys, welcome to another That Was the Year That Was, and this week I'm going to be taking a look at the year 1983, and it's specifically all about the ZX Spectrum. There will be, I will feature other computers later on, but this is all about the ZX Spectrum. So 1983, what did that year mean for me? I was still at school. I'd be 16 years old, I think it was. Now that was when it was quite a sort of an important year in my life. I mean, I just turned 16. I was able to drive a moped. I got my license so I could drive a moped. I also started my very first job in October 1983, and I believe I got my very first computer. Yep, the Texas TI-994A. So anyway, what happened in that there news back in 1983? Well, in the UK, the average house price was £34,795. Blimey, you couldn't even get a really good car for that. Gallon of petrol was £1.25. Now, big events news-wise in the UK: seatbelts for drivers and front seat passengers became mandatory in the United Kingdom. I can't actually believe it was as long ago as that. I thought it was maybe 10-15 years ago, but that just shows you what do I know. Also in the UK, there was an IRA bombing that exploded outside Harrods on December the 17th during the pre-Christmas shopping season. The world's population was estimated to be 4.72 billion. Now, as of 2011, it's currently over 7 billion. So it just goes to show, guys, the world's population has almost doubled since 1983, which is incredible. You know, that should happen. You know, that we can support all these people, although probably the case is we can't support them all, unfortunately. UK wise, due to the deployment of cruise missiles in the UK, CND organises marches and rallies with over 200,000 people attending. In the US, the very first mobile phone was introduced, courtesy of Motorola Company. Back in the UK, breakfast TV started in the UK with BBC Breakfast Time and TV AM. I always remember that. It always seemed mental that there was a TV programme on at 6 o'clock in the morning, because before that, TV did not start until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You got the Open University in the early hours, and that was basically it. So yeah, it was quite a thing when breakfast TV first started. Space-wise, Sally Ride became the first American woman in the Space Shuttle Challenger. That was on the 18th of June. Back in the UK, the US deploys cruise missiles in Europe at the Greenham Common Air Force Base in England, and deploys Pershing missiles in West Germany. Like, I remember hearing about that at the time. United States, Ronald Reagan proposes the Strategic Defence Initiative, i.e. SDI, or I think it became known as Star Wars. In other words, he was going to put a laser into space which was going to shoot down cruise missiles. It's quite scary that the whole nuclear thing has gone in full circle. We're now back to this, you know, very real threat, which is a horrible thing. UK wise again, Margaret Thatcher wins a landslide victory in the general election. Technology wise, ARPANET officially changes to use the Internet Protocol, creating the Internet. There you go. Lotus 123 was released. IBM releases the IBM PC XT computer. The US Space Challenger is launched on its maiden flight. Microsoft Word was also first released in this year. And the very first person to receive an artificial heart, a chap called Barney Clark in the US, he died after 112 days. So sadly, obviously, wasn't too successful. And Swatch introduced their very first watches. Now, music wise, what did we have? The top 20 music tracks. In fact, we'll just go for the top 10. I think there's more than plenty. Top 10 with Let's Dance is David Bowie. Sadly no more, unfortunately. Number 9 was KC and the Sunshine Band with Give It Up. I think they were a one-hit wonder, were they? Number 8, another one-hit wonder, Men at Work with Down Under, although I think they had another one called It's a Mistake, which was probably the right the right terminology to use. Number 7, we had Rod Stewart with Baby Jane. Number 6, we had The Police with Every Breath You Take. Number 5, Spandau Ballet with True. That was always the song they last played at a disco. That's when usually you were standing about hoping to dance with some bird, but you didn't want to. Number 4 was Paul Young with Wherever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home. Number 3 was UB40, Red Wine. Number 2, Billy Joel with Uptown Girl. And at number 1 was Boy George and Culture Club with Karma Chameleon. Now in that there cinema, I've not got these in any particular order, some of the best films in 1983. Now please don't post below and say you missed this one out, you've missed that one out, because there are hundreds of films released in a particular year, but just very quickly looking at them, what's his name? John Carpenter's Christine was released. Educating Rita with Michael Caine and I can't remember her name. One we'd rather forget is Jaws 3D, an absolutely horrific Jaws film. As much as I love Jaws, that was absolutely god awful. Return of the Jedi, Scarface, Al Pacino, Christopher Reeve with Superman 3. Here's an unknown fact, I have never ever watched any Superman film, including the first one, so there you go. Now I remember seeing this film with Debbie Harry of Blondie fame, Videodrome. It was quite a dark film, all about videotapes and that kind of stuff, but I remember you get to see her tits in it, so that made it really worthwhile. Also War Games was released, again quite a poignant film considering what's going on between North Korea and America at the moment. Classic The Meaning of Life, Monty Python. Tom Cruise with Risky Business. Flashdance, classic Dan Aykroyd and I was going to say Billy Murphy, Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, and the wonderful National Lampoon's Vacation. It was also released as well. So anyway, right, let's crack on with the important stuff, and that is some games. These are not in any particular order, it's just some games that I'm aware of that I loved back in the day, so let's take a wee look, guys. Right, to kick things off, we're starting with a classic. This is 3D Death Chase by Melvin Escort, I think it is. Here you go, Melvin Escort. Now we've got to say, guys, due to the absolutely phenomenal number of games I'm featuring in this video, I'm having to stick to about a minute per game, so don't expect any massive overview of any game. This game is an absolute classic, and it still is. I mean, it's very, very simple, but I think for me anyway, one of the most impressive things about it is the way the actual update, the trees come racing towards you. It's stupidly fast, especially in later levels, and it's a really, really good, it's a very impressive game. I don't think it was converted to anything else, I think it was just the Spectrum. Now the idea of the game is to try and shoot you're apparently on a motorbike, you saw the title screen, but you're trying to shoot these little guys and avoid dying. So that is 3D Death Chase. Next one, Diddums. Now this is by, what do you call them? Imagine Software. We all know what happened to them, and I'm not talking about the Ocean Imagine Software, I'm talking about the original Ocean Software. They were one of the early sort of software houses. They sold games with a bucket load, most of which were absolutely awful, but because there was nothing else out there, people bought them by the bucket load, and they made a lot of money, and they bought cars, Ferraris, Porsches, you name it, and then they subsequently went bust after about a couple of years, I think it was, and we never heard from them again. I mean, a lot of the programmers went on to other things, but anyway, Diddums, you play the part of a teddy bear, and I think you're trying to tidy up the bedroom, but I can't figure out for the life of me what you actually have to do. So that is Diddums. Next one up is another not Ocean game, another Imagine game. This time it's Alchemist. Now fortunately this isn't Pish. It's actually quite impressive. You play the part of a wizard, or an alchemist I'm guessing, but rather cleverly you can actually morph into a, is it a hawk? Is it a bird? Who knows? You just pull down and you change. Now presumably you need to be able to change into these different characters to access different parts of the sort of levels. But it's actually really nice. The animation's pretty good, and it's got a nice, that game mechanic is really quite original. I don't think I saw anything else like that. So yeah, this was one of the better games, shall we say, from Imagine. I mean, there was some absolutely diabolical stuff which we will see later on. You can probably tell I'm going to be doing this in alphabetical order, because just in case, I mean, there's going to be plenty of people that are not going to want to watch all these games. They may want to jump to another game. So that was Alchemist. Now this one is a Stonewall classic. This is the mighty Ant Attack, programmed by fellow Scotsperson Sandy White and his girlfriend of the time, Angela, I think it was, or was it his wife? Who knows? Now this game, you've got to try and your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you've actually got the choice to play boy or girl, has been kidnapped. Is it Manchester, something like that? I can't remember what it's called. And they're basically tied up, and you've got to try and rescue them from the killer ants. It looks very simple, but it was very, very impressive, and even now it still plays really nice. The graphics, you can actually rotate the graphics as well, the viewpoint. So that is Ant Attack. That is a classic game. Next up, another classic. This is actually a particular favourite of mine. This is Ant Attack. Listen to me, Attic Attack. Yeah, Attic Attack, programmed by Ultimate Play the Game, or Rare as it became known in later years. I bought this game from my mate for his Spectrum. I can't remember what game he bought me from a Commodore 64. I think it was £5.99. But it's a lovely game. I mean, I always thought it's more like pinball, the things is bouncing about, but it is a kind of graphic adventure. You've got to try and escape. Is that what you're trying to do? I'm not too sure. The thing I love about this game is you've got the chicken. Your life is actually depicted by a roast chicken. On the right hand side of the screen you'll see there, the more hits you take, the more meat comes off the bone, and once it gets to a skeleton, you become one yourself. It's got that lovely, lovely Spectrum sound though. Any burps and farts and whatever it is. All of these sound effects were used by later games, although it might possibly be down to the fact that the Spectrum sound chip was quite limited, although later on some people did some amazing things. So that is Attic Attack. That is a definite classic. Right, this bad boy, this is Barmy Burgers by Blabby Software. You've got to love the sound of Spectrum games. I'm an absolute sucker for Burger Time games. I don't know what it is, I'm fascinated with them. I always find them incredibly enjoyable. Although one of the toughest parts about some of these games is actually trying to line up on the ladders to get up. This one's not that bad. It's quite unforgiving. It's quite difficult to actually line yourself up like that. And it's got the most annoying death noise ever. Yeah, Barmy Burgers. Right, this next one, I did actually do a video of this fairly recently looking at different versions. This is BC's Quest for Tyres. This is a fantastic game. It was originally released by a company called Sierra Online. Now, that was long before online was existed, you know. There was no such thing as the internet back in 1983. Well, maybe it was, but certainly not for us consumers. So yeah, the idea of this game is to basically get from left to right and rescue your girlfriend whilst avoiding hitting your head on, is it trees or is it a wasp's nest? I really don't know, and you get to also jump over things as well. It's quite a simplistic game, but it's great fun. There was a sequel to this game called Grog's Revenge, and I think Grog's actually the baddie. So yeah, that's BC's Quest for Tyres. Right, this next one, Bear Bother. This was, there you go, John Rittman, who famously went on to write Batman and Head Over Heels and Matchday games. Now, I can remember seeing this game for the very first time on a programme called Saturday Live, which was a kids TV programme in the UK back in the old days before the internet and YouTube and things like that. Now, the idea is you've got to collect bits, or is it just batteries for your car. Now, I'm playing it in baby mode, i.e. you can't actually die, so there's no real challenge at all, but I'm rather pants at the game, so you pick up your battery, excuse me, you move on. The animation's actually really nice. I mean, you can see, if you look at Matchday, the football game, you can see the animation is very, very similar. But this is actually quite an impressive game. You're a bear, you're wearing a suit, but anyway. Right, this is a rather iconic one. This is Bugaboo the Flea. Now, it was written by a Spanish chap, whose name completely escapes me. Is it Pacho or something? I think he was called. I can't remember. But the idea is you play Bugaboo and you've fallen down inside this cave and you've got to try and escape. It's probably one of the most difficult games ever. It really is. It's just impossible. You move left and right, and the longer you hold down the button makes you jump higher. But the problem is, if you jump too high, you'll hit your head off the roof and then you end up back at the very beginning again. So it's a savagely difficult game. The scrolling's bloody woeful, but for the time it was actually quite impressive graphically. I mean, this was a game that always seemed to be on display in John Menzies. They always had this game running. So that is Bugaboo the Flea. Next one, another classic, Checkered Flag. Yeah, it's a race game now. It looks like your car's made of building blocks. These red things I think are your tyres. But for an early racing game, I think it played quite well. It does actually feel pretty good. I don't think there's any, I mean, the only feeling of movement is a little roadside obstacles, and you get occasional, I don't know what it is it pools of oil or something like that on the road. I mean, there's no, it's quite clever they've done that actually, because if they'd gone for like lines, then you'd have probably seen that it didn't look that quick. But because they've gone for the very minimalist approach, it does look quite impressive. So that is Checkered Flag, and that was one of the first games that most people owned, including this one. I couldn't leave this one out. This is Computer Scrabble. Now, I've just got this running in demo, hence the reason the Specky is thinking, so he's actually playing with himself. Yes, this game I think was bundled with the early Spectrum, I think the 48k Spectrum. You got this automatically now. Nobody played it. Well, I've said that, I think it actually plays quite a good game of Scrabble. Nice kind of clear layout. But you know, if you don't have any pals and you want to play a game of Scrabble, then you could probably do worse than check this one out. So that is Scrabble. The next one, this was another bundled game, I believe. This was Cyrus v Cyrus Chess, or was it just called Cyrus Chess? Can't remember. Again, I've got this on demo mode, hence the reason it's playing extremely quick. What I used to like about the old computer magazines, anytime they released a chess game, you used to get magazines that would do head-to-head, so you'd have like the Commodore 64's chess game versus the Spectrum's chess game, and you thought, wow, my chess game's the best, I've obviously got the best computer. So yeah, that is chess. It does what it says in the tin. Right, this next horror one, this is Everest Ascent by a company called Richard Shepherd Software. Now they again were an early, obviously all these companies are early software companies because we're looking at 1983. They primarily made sort of graphic-y type adventures. They had, what other ones did they have? They had Transylvanian Tower, where you had to find and defeat Frankenstein, or Frankenstein. No, it wasn't Frankenstein, it was Dracula, you fool. Yeah. So here you go, you've got to try and make a list. This is a list of available Sherpas and their daily rates. 80 quid a day, my goodness. I heard, last time I heard it's something like £12,000 if you want to climb Everest. Although, you know, you could probably kill yourself for far less than that. So yeah, that's the idea of this game, is to try and get to the top of Mount Everest. You must now select your equipment I don't know if there's any graphics as such. I know the other games had very, very basic graphics, but I don't think you have to use a joystick. I think it's all kind of keyboard. So I'm guessing that's probably your whack of graphics. So that is Everest Ascent. Next one is Fighter Pilot. Now you might see a bit of a pattern forming here. I mean, I have picked the games that I have heard of. There's tons of games that came out in 1983 that I've never heard of, so I didn't bother including them. I'm purely going for the games that I'd heard of. Yeah, Fighter Pilot. Again, it's exactly what you think it is. You play the part of a fighter pilot. I've got no idea how to actually move it. Quite a nice clear controls, I've got to say. I seem to be able to bank very, very slightly. Doesn't appear to be any sound of any kind. It's funny, when home computers first came out, flight simulators were one of the first thing that people wanted to do. Now you don't really get, well, you probably do. I think Microsoft still probably make flight simulators where you can actually fly in real time to Australia, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I have a mate's dad who actually flies in real time on his computer, but yeah, this was one of the first ones, and it was always well thought of. This one again, I think this might have been bundled, I'm not sure, but this was one of the very early Spectrum games. This is Scion Flight Simulator. Again, it's got nice clear kind of visuals, but I have got no idea how to play it. It doesn't appear to really move with the joystick. I'm sure it'd all be keys. But yeah, that's what people wanted to do. They wanted to get a computer. They wanted to fly an aeroplane. I mean, it was, you know, all these home micros. The Commodore 64 had them as well. They had an excellent one called Flight Simulator, I think it was called, funnily enough, and also one called Solo Flight. But anyway, I digress. We should be talking about Spectrum games. So yeah, this was one of the original Spectrum games. I think it was reviewed quite favourably back in the day. Obviously, I'm not doing a particularly good job of actually showing off any of its nice features, but nice control panel, and I'm sure that's some kind of runway in front of you, but I can't tell. Next up is Frogger by Rabbit Software. Across the busy motorway, blah blah blah. Arcade conversions were 10 a penny back in 1983. Most of the games that came out were based on arcade games. For the simple reason was they were easy to, well, I'm saying easy to program. The programmer had something to look at, so he could just copy the game, and you could call it Frogger like they did in this game, and you didn't have to worry a jot about paying any royalty fees. Nowadays, you would get your ass sued big style if you tried to do this. If you came out a game called Halo, you would soon be up in front of the judge, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm right, that's okay. I've just lost another life there, I think. Now I'm using keys here, but rather annoyingly it seems to be kind of doing the key repeat thing. So if you touch it too hard, it'll move twice. Right, now, what on earth is that? I've never seen a Frogger game where you've got to navigate through a maze to get onto the river. Yeah, anyway, that is one of plenty Frogger games. That was by Rabbit Software. This next one is Galaxians, right, very good. So they've kept the same tune or the same sounding name, but they've just changed the spelling slightly. I didn't actually catch who actually released this one. Graphically, the sprites look really, really good. One thing they don't do in this version, like they do in arcade, they don't flip up so they're actually facing you. These ones are kind of staying upright. But again, this was one of many Galaxian clones released back in the day. Just a shame they couldn't have made the actual ship a bit nicer. It looks rather bland and looks nothing like the ship in the arcade game. But anyway, yeah, that is Galaxians. I think it might have been by Rabbit Software, but I can't be sure. Right, next one, Grid Runner by Jeff Minter. This was one of Jeff's earlier games, or earliest games I should say, on the micros, and this is actually a really good game. It doesn't look like much at all, but it actually plays really well. It's been ported to just about every computer known to man. I mean, there's been versions even on the on iOS and Android and whatnot. It's kind of based on Centipede. You know, I know Jeff might deny that, but it is basically Centipede. But he's added a few of his own twists. But it's actually a really good game. Like I said, the graphics look very sparse and uninteresting, but once it actually gets up to harder levels, it actually becomes a really good game. Right, this one, Groucho. This is, where'd I start with this? Just read that. This is our salute to Hollywood, where everything is possible and Groucho worked to make us laugh. We hope to make your dream come true with our prize of a journey to visit Hollywood for yourself. Now that was absolutely true. There was a holiday to Hollywood on offer. My mate bought this game, and it features, if you're probably under 35 years old, you've probably got no idea who Groucho is. Groucho was based on Groucho Marx, who was one of the Marx Brothers, who were a kind of comedy back in the day. Now, he famously carried he used to have a cigar all the time. So you play the part of him. It's a bizarre game, but then Automata that actually published this game did make some strange games. So this is a kind of an adventure-y type game. I've got no idea what I'm actually supposed to be doing here. This is kind of the start of the game. But yeah, you did actually, whoever solved it won a holiday. Whether somebody actually did win that, I have no idea. So yeah, that's bizarre. That's Groucho. Right, this one by Dural Software. This is Harrier Attack. Again, this is it's quite an iconic game. It's a very early game, but I think it did pretty well. You know, looking at it now, it's you know, you can't be too critical. You've got to remember 1983 would be 93, 2003, talking 34 years ago. 34 years ago this game came out, so the fact that it's even moderately playable means it was quite a good game. Whoa. Never actually had this game. I think it might have been released in the C64, but there's a game I used to play which was very similar called Falcon Patrol, which I always preferred because it was a bit faster, a bit smoother, and had really nice sound as well. But I think Falcon Patrol was basically based in this game. And obviously the Harrier Attack were literally just in the tail end of the Falklands War, and that was in 1982. So you know, like aeroplane shoot 'em ups and things like that with games like this were very popular. So that is Harrier Attack. Boof. Right, where do we start with this one? Horus and the Spiders. Now, it took me a bloody while to actually figure out how to play this game. It's this must have been about my 50th million go. Is that some sort of web that the Spiders has dropped and I've got to try and navigate across? Yeah, I mean, Horus, what else did he do? He did Hungry Horus, he did Horus Goes Skiing, Hungry Horus. This one, was there any other? I can't remember. I think people thought that he was going to become some big sort of mascot for the Spectrum, and I suppose he did initially for the first few years, but then I think the guy that made the Horus games just disappeared off the face of the planet, never to be seen again. So yeah, that's a rather odd one, with that infamous Spectrum kind of noise. Right, on to something a bit better. This is Jetpack. Classic game, stands up even now. It's kind of Drop Zone meets Defender. It's got colour clash all over the place, but you know, it looks nice, it plays nice. The graphics are quite detailed, really colourful looking, so you can live with the colour clash. But this is a great game. It was never ported to the C64, or I think it was, but it was never actually released. So I had to rely on my mate. And again, I never actually played my mate's Spectrum. Even games like this I didn't like, but I love this game to bits now. I do play it quite a lot. always think I'm doing well when I can get to like the 30th level or whatever, and then you hear people saying that they got bored after 2 hours because they had so many lives. But I'm guessing it'll get to a certain difficulty and then just kind of not get any harder. But so yeah, that's a lovely game. You can play this on the Xbox One collection, the Rare collection I think it was, released a few years ago. Right, this one, it's a Jumping Jack, I think they call this one. Released by, I think it was Imagine Software, I can't remember exactly. This, I've read a story about this in, I think it was Retro Gamer, that it was actually a dad wrote this for his son. They got the Spectrum and he wrote this game, and his son enjoyed it so much that he actually sent it off to see if anyone would want to publish it, and the rest, as they say, is history. It's simplistic itself. I mean, you basically run from left to right, avoiding the gaps, and then when a gap appears above you, you jump through it, and the idea is just to get to the top of the screen. I've now got somebody with, is it a pump action shotgun? Or is it some kind of garden hose? I don't know. But again, it's a fun little game. It's got really shit graphics, but it's functional, and that's the important thing. So that is Jak Attack. Right, here we go. Killer Kong by Blabby Games. And yes, this is what it does when the game starts. I would love to know how Blabby managed to change gravity. How these barrels, excuse me, these barrels are on a completely flat surface, yet they're still moving. So I don't know how that works. Again, this was one of many conversions of Donkey Kong. There was some woeful ones, some even worse ones, and then there was this. Although, you know what, to be fair, I've seen a lot worse. I've seen a lot worse. Yeah. Right, Luna Crabs by Microomega, again by your mate MJ Escort. He was quite prolific in the Spectrum in the early days. Don't know what happened to him, but he says he also did make Speed King for the Commodore 64. He might have made it for the other. I think he also made Full Throttle as well. So he seemed to be good at sort of early 3D-ish type stuff. You know, even demonstrating that here. So it looks like you're playing a part of a tank and you're shooting killer crabs, I would imagine. I don't know what it is they're actually throwing at you, some kind of poison of some sort, I think. Right, next one. This is, what is this game? I actually cut it out before I think it was. Oh, this is Lunar Jetman. Now, I think this was a sequel to Jetpack, but it just never did as well because they made the difficulty far too hard, or far too steep. The idea of the game, I believe, is to basically shoot the baddies and drive your little truck thing from left to right. But when a bomb destroys a crater, you've got to jump back out. You basically can't drive when there's a crater, and you've got to fix the crater, something like that. This is the first time I've really played it. But it's just never done as well because it's just too difficult, which is a shame because it looks really nice. And apparently there's an urban myth. Was it Crash Magazine pictured? They said the idea of the game was to actually pick up a truck or a trailer, and somebody actually posted a picture of said truck, which turned out to be made up. So, right, one of my favourite Spectrum games, and probably the same for a lot of other people. This is Manic Miner, programmed by Matthew Smith, who then went on to program Jet Set Willy. And did he do Jet Set Willy 2? I can't remember. He might have, but I don't know if it was actually released properly. This game has been converted to virtually every computer under the sun, but to my mind there's only one. The definitive version has got to be the Spectrum. Not just because that was original, it's because it's just been honed to perfection. The sound effects, the graphics, and even the controls. It's a Spectrum game through and through, and it still provides a challenge. I mean, I've never managed to get past, is it Return of the Kong Beast, I think it is, maybe level 8, something like that. I've never managed to get past that. And once you've collected everything, you've got to get to the flashing Shreddy at the bottom of the screen. And you get that lovely sound effect. Right, next one, DK-Tronics Maziacs. Now I think I did they did what for DK-Tronics? I think I did anyway, I can't remember exactly. And some of the stuff that they put out was awful. Now when I first loaded this game up, I thought, oh my goodness, how bad is that? But you know what, I actually googled it, and it's really playable. I'm not quite sure, is that guy trapped? So the idea of the game seems to be, I mean, why is that yellow? I'm actually trying to figure out what's what. It's almost kinda like a very early Gauntlet. You know, apart from the multiple baddies and the keys and whatnot. Well, there are keys in this game, but yeah, it's actually quite a playable little game. I wasn't able to get too far in it. I mean, how far can you get in 1 minute playing any game? But so rather odd looking baddies. I'm not quite sure what they are. But again, this is one of these games, the graphics actually belie the playability of the game. I've got a bit of fisticuffs going on there. Definitely worth checking out. That is Maziacs. And I apologise now about this horrible noise. Which goes on, and it's almost as worth as getting dental treatment. This is Molar Maul, where you've got to try and save your teeth from rotting. You can't even skip that, and you get it every time. When you start a new game, you get that horrible thing. John Gibson, yep, again it's Imagine Software. Now John Gibson, he was the guy with the beard, and he went on to be part of, oh, what were they called? They did Shadowfire. I can't remember the name of the bloody company that he worked for. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the idea of this game is you've got to try and brush your teeth, and I have played this before and I could not for the life of me figure out how I actually do it. Quite simplistic looking. So I assume that Bluetooth is that tooth is now bad and I've got to try and clean it. But I've really no idea how or what I go about doing it. So anyway, let's move on. That is Molar Maul by Imagine Software. Next one, this is Moon Buggy by Analog Software. Now this is me playing it, and I actually googled it, or I went onto YouTube and did a search because I thought I can't seem to move left or right, and I was watching other people playing it and they had the same problem. So it looks like this particular game you cannot move left and right, you can only jump. You can fire a rocket horizontally or you can fire a rocket vertically, and you can jump. And in the arcade one you're able to jump and sort of move in the air, which makes it easier, but this one you don't appear to be able to do it, so that's why it's stupidly difficult. But there's better Moon Patrols out there, just go and look. Right, next one, talking of remakes, Munchman. Bonus point for anyone who can guess what this is going to be. Again, published by DK-Tronics. Now this actually isn't half bad. Now if I'm not mistaken, no, you know what, I was going to say this is faithfully reproduced the map of Pac-Man, but I don't think it has. I don't think it has, because Pac-Man's got the bit at the top of the screen where you can get trapped. But you know what, I'm using keys here. I mean, most of the games, I have to say, that are in this video were all key controlled. It was kind of later on that joysticks started to become more popular. But yeah, it's actually fairly responsive and it's nice and clear. It actually plays not a bad wee game. Now, the flashing thing at the bottom is obviously your flashing power pill, which you eat. You get about 5 seconds to turn the tables on the baddies and go and eat them for bonus points. Like so, but when they start flashing, they then run away from you. So let's catch him. Here we go. Yeah. Right, next one. This is, what is this called? I recognise it. This is called Paratroopers. Again, I think it's by Rabbit Software. It is pretty basic. You control the little gunner at the bottom of the screen. It doesn't appear you can move left or right. All you can do is swivel the gun left and right to shoot the baddies. It's almost like a carnival in the arcade, a very, very basic kind of shoot 'em up type game. Always thought the animation of the wee guy at the bottom looked quite good. I'm assuming when so many men reach the bottom, like so, is it game over? Boom! Yes it is. That's Paratroopers. Next one. I actually rented a movie out called that rather a few weeks ago. Yeah, Penetrator. An early Scramble clone. And it's actually really impressive. I couldn't figure out how to move left or right. In fact, you know what, I probably could, but there's too many buttons. I was a C64 guy back in the day. I didn't do buttons, so trying to use a keyboard is a nightmare for me, so that's why I'm just moving up and down. That's one of these little ditties that's entertaining for about 5 minutes. Then after the 3rd time you're absolutely sick of it. But yeah, you know what, it plays really nice. It's actually a really good version of the Scramble, apart from that bloody noise. Right, that was whatever that was. That was Penetrator. This one is Phoenix. Now I remember seeing my mate playing this, and you know what, I was always slightly jealous that this wasn't on the Commodore 64. I mean, there was a cracking version on the C64 called Eagle Empire, but I always thought this one looked the dog's bollocks. It's even got the same music. Graphics are excellent. It's got the same music, and it even looks the same. But the only thing missing from this version, I would say, is the scrolling sort of star field. And it's, if anything, I'd probably say it's more difficult than the arcade one, and that is saying something, as I'm aptly demonstrating. But it's actually a really, really good version of Phoenix. I would reckon it's probably the best one available for the Spectrum. Now, despite the size of these guys, you've got to hit them bang on the centre to actually kill them. So it is actually slightly more difficult than it looks. Right, I know I've played more than a minute of this game, but I'm determined to reach the mothership. I think this was one of the first games to have featured a mothership that you've got to destroy. If it wasn't the first, it was certainly one of the first. Ah, bollocks. One life left, I think. Yeah. Right, that was Phoenix. This is a Qbert clone called Pogo, released by Ocean Software. Now, this is actually the demo, because try for the life of me, I could not get I could get the game to play, but I could not move properly. It was just always jumping up and down. It was all over the place. So I thought I'll just stick the demo in, and it gives you a rough flavour of what the game was about. Actually looks not too dissimilar from the arcade one. Again, it was one of these games, there was oodles and oodles and oodles of versions of this. I was never a fan of it, I always felt it was just a bit too difficult. But yeah, I'm sure some people enjoyed it. So that is Pogo, and that is by Ocean. Another one, Rabbit Software, this is Potty Painter. Now, excuse me. Okay, yep, doesn't seem to support a joystick, but I'm sure I can live with 4 keys. Ah, right, okay, as I thought. It's Amadar, based on the well, the arcade game Amadar, which you play the part of a monkey trying to colour in squares. Quite how they thought of that, I've got absolutely no idea. And you're obviously getting pursued with, I don't know what these guys are, 2 guys with large sticks. Are they hunters trying to hunt the monkey or something? I'm not too sure. Pardon me. Now you have, I don't know if you've got only a certain number, they called it freezes. Basically in the arcade one, if you press the fire button, the baddies freeze for a few seconds. In the arcade, I think it made a wee hole, and it kind of stopped them in their tracks for a few seconds. But again, it's a simple game, but it's actually quite good fun. Right, next one. This is, what is this called? This is called Psst. Psst. I always think that wee robot looks awfully like the robot in, what do you call it, Alien 8. Quite similar, don't you think? Right, the idea of this game, I believe, is to try and kill all the critters with your spray. Now you'll see at the bottom of the screen there's a plant which is starting to grow. If you look at it, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think eventually, once it gets to the top and flowers, you move on to the next level. Again, quite a simplistic game, but the graphics are really nice. You know, Ultimate really were. They didn't put out a bad game. Maybe later on in the, you know, some of the games are a bit repetitive, but the early games, they were always great fun to play, and they always had brilliant graphics. Right, this is Rommel's Revenge. It's basically Battlezone. Now we know how to play Battlezone. The idea is you've got to try and destroy the baddies, or else before they shoot you. And the graphical style is obviously on the original Battlezone by Atari. It was a vector monitor. I've got to say, the Spectrum does quite a nice version. It's a shame they didn't go for the black and white to kind of give it the proper authentic look, but it still looks nice. Come on, shoot! Shoot! It's quite slow to respond. Zap! Alright, you don't get the big explosion. Right, next one, Durrell Software again, Scuba Dive. Again, it's a very, very famous early game. I remember watching my mate playing it, and I always thought it looked quite good. Although I've got to say, looking at it now, it doesn't look as good as I remember it to be, but you know, back in 1983 we didn't have Xbox 360s. Back in the early days of the computers, there was so much originality, so many different games. You know, stuff like Trash Man and, you know, games like that, emptying bins. You just don't get that originality now. Bloody hell, look at the big white shark. That's actually quite scary looking. Yeah, there was just so much originality. And because the budgets were so low, it was basically one guy sat in his bedroom programming. There was no, they weren't taking a risk as such, because their overheads were virtually bugger all. You know, nowadays the budgets for games running into millions, which is the reason you never see any real original games. Right, this is a pet hate of mine. This is Snooker by Vision Software. Now, I have done a video of this on the Commodore 64, and I think I called it my possibly the worst game ever, and well deserved in my opinion. It's the physics of this game are absolutely shocking. You could have a ball right over the pocket, and you could line it up perfectly, and then when you play the shot, the white ball completely misses. Now, I don't know if this one's going to be any better. Now, I'm trying to use keys here to control the crosshair, and I'm all over the place. I mean, I'm trying to get an accurate mark on that red. It's hard to tell if it's as bad as the C64. The C64 one is an absolute travesty of a game. It really is. It's shockaroony. Although it didn't stop me and my mates playing it, because that's all we had, you know. So you just made do with what you had. Right, that was Snooker. This next one, now this is a game that I can remember seeing adverts galore for it, and it's called Splat. Now, it was only out on the Spectrum, I think, but honestly, you saw it was getting hyped beyond belief. Well, at least as far as I was concerned, I remember seeing adverts for it all the time in computer and video games. Now, it's a bit of a sod. It took me a few attempts to actually figure out what the hell I'm doing. The maze appears to move randomly, I'm assuming, you know, in different directions, and you've got to try and eat, is it grass, whatever it is, and try and not hit the walls or the edges. If you hit the edge, it's game over. But when I saw this game in the list, I thought, oh, this is going to be good. I mean, it was so well hyped, but it's quite simplistic. So that was Splat. Right, this one is called Stonkers, released by Ocean Software. Imagine Software. I keep saying Ocean. Imagine Software. Again, it's programmed by John Gibson, who did the other one we looked at. Was it Alchemist? I think it was. This is I think it reviewed quite well, this game, although apparently it was quite buggy. It's basically a sort of a strategy war game. I mean, these games are 10 a penny nowadays, but to have a game like this on a, you know, within 48k was actually really impressive. Now, the idea being is obviously you've got to try and send your troops to fight other troops and eventually win. You know, I'm just fanning about here. I've got absolutely no idea what I'm actually doing here. You can see it's changing between different screens, but yeah, like I said, it was quite popular back in the day. Now this one, this is Stop the Express. I am really impressed with the graphics of this game. You know, look at the sort of character definition. The character definition, the colour, you know, even the detail of the sprites, I think is really good. Pity I can't play it for toffee. Now, the idea, I think, is to run from right to left. I've just been hit with a bullet, I'm guessing. But for such an early game, I say the graphics are quite impressive, and even the way the train, the colour, the way it's moving, you know, across the screen is actually really nice. But I can't play it for toffee, so you'll need to go and check out another video to see how to play the game. Right, Subhunt. You must navigate your destroyer over the surface of the water, destroying as many blah 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 as possible. Is that spider's web? Or is that your sonar? I'm not too sure. Yeah, this was... there was a game, I think it was called Sub Hunt in arcades. I can't remember exactly, but I remember playing a game similar to this. I think it was a place called Burnt Island in Fife. It was an arcade you had, and this one had the big... you look through the periscope to give it that authentic feel. And idea is you've got to try and destroy boats. I mean, looking at it now, it looks like an upturned hot dog rather than a boat. But and you'd have been bored shitless with this game after 5 minutes. But again, that's how we rolled back in 1983. Yeah, I'm fed up already. Right, next one, Pterodactyl by Beam Software. 4-dimensional. This is your captain speaking. Welcome to Lost Jungle Airlines. Sightseeing Tour 13. We hope you have a pleasant trip. You may now smoke and unfasten your seatbelt. Blimey, they wouldn't hear that nowadays. If you did either of these, you'd be tossed off the plane. I'm not quite sure. Is this an adventure game? I've really got no idea. This is your captain speaking. We appear to be having some difficulty with our aircraft. Please extinguish all cigarettes. Oh, there you go. And fasten your seatbelt. Yep. And that's probably why they don't allow that anymore. I'm just intrigued as to see what kind of game this is. Right, I don't appear to be controlling that. So this is almost a kind of cutscene of sorts. There doesn't appear to be any sound at all. Oh, there we go. I think I'd stick with the silence myself, but now what? I'm in some sort of landscape. Right, okay, right, so it's basically Space Invaders. I'm controlling that little thing at the bottom, whatever the hell it is. And I'm trying to destroy Space Invaders, albeit very unsuccessfully at the moment. So that whole bit at the start is just to try and create some kind of story around a game of Space Invaders. I don't seem to be doing a very good job of doing this at all. So anyway, that was Pterodactyl 4D. This one is, what do you call it, The Pyramid by Fantasy Software. Now I can't remember what he was called. That little character had a name. I can't remember for the life of me what he was called. Now I like this game. I had it on the C64, but there's something about the Spectrum one. I like the sound effects in the Spectrum one, and I like the way the little baddies dissolve. It's a simple game, but there's something strangely compelling and enjoyable about firing your wee laser with that lovely little sound. Now I assume it'll eventually speed up. And we'll get different graphics. I'm not quite sure when do you get to the end of the level. I'm just looking at the bottom left. It says 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And it's gone back to 12. So I've got no idea. Anyway, yeah, that was the Pyramid. Right, this one is called Trans Am. Again, it was released by Ultimate. Play the game. Quite an unusual game for Ultimate. They generally did sort of platformy games. As far as I'm aware, this is the first kind of driving game they ever did. It looks quite similar to, or the sprites at least look quite similar to Rallycross. Rally X, sorry, I should say. Now, you're also trying to collect something. Collect these red things, the blue things. You can see I've got a little kind of map at the side. I'm not 100% sure what I'm trying to collect here. You don't collect them, obviously. Right, it looks like you get points for actually just driving, so basically surviving earns you points. And it's got that delightful little kind of farty sound. Farty sound effect. Alright, okay, so I pick up these cups. That fuel, or something like that, is it? Yeah, I think it is. Probably, I mean, nice scrolling. Right, this next one, Tutankhamun. This will be a clone of the Tutankhamun arcade game, where I believe you're trying to raid the tomb of Tutankhamun, and then I'm guessing probably trying to escape with all the booty. Oops. Right, is that a little... I'm just trying to see, is that a little map at the top? I think it is. I'm just trying to actually see whereabout. Right, I've got you, right, okay. Yeah, okay, that one's 3 screens. I'm actually on the left hand screen at the moment. Once I go up to the top here, it should flick to the second screen, the big square in the middle. Maybe not. Right, okay, that's the end of that screen. Anyway, it's probably an alright wee game to figure out. Actually figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. That was released by Micromania, and that is Tutankhamun. Right, next game up is it's another adventure type game, which I think at the time it was quite expensive. I'm sure it was about £10. This is Valhalla. Now I think it was touted as being an adventure game, but you actually got to move people. It had moving graphics, which was quite a big thing back in 1983. A lot of games just had static. In fact, a lot of games had no graphics or static graphics, but this one's actually got some animation in it, which we'll hopefully see. You're in thoroughly no patience for these kind of games. Alright, okay, so the CDB arrow U, so that's me on the left. Right. And you can see I'm moving, so there is some basic animation, but again, back in 1983 that was probably quite a big thing. I'm sure it came in a big kind of cardboard box. Was it released by Beyond Software, I think it was? Dare I say the animation is not actually half bad. So that is Valhalla. This next one is Wheelie by Microsphere. Now I think this game again is by our old pal Melvin Escort, I think it was. Now, I've got to admit this is a demo because I could not for the life of me actually figure out how to play the game. Hence the reason it's flashing demo, press a key to play. It looks to me like the idea is just to jump. You're on a road motorbike, oddly, and you've got to try and navigate to different levels and collect stuff. Quite a bizarre concept. But I had several goes and I just could not for the life of me figure it out. So anyway, listen, we're about to move on to the very last video, which is, the last one is going to be Xeno 2 by Analog Software. And it looks kind of like not a Skylander, Lunar Lander type game. So anyway, listen guys, before this video ends, I hope you enjoyed watching it. It's taken quite a while to actually put together. I know it probably doesn't look like it But believe you me, when you make these videos with loads and loads of different games, there's quite a bit of work goes into it. So hopefully you enjoy it. There will obviously be another one, 1984, probably in maybe 2-3 weeks time. And then once I get bored of doing the Spectrum, I'll maybe start on the Commodore 64 or Amstrad, something like that. If there's a particular feature you want to see me have a crack at, stick your comments below. And as usual, thank you very much for watching.